Alrighty guys and girls, so today I'm going to finally do a killer tier list. So stay tuned and get your keyboards ready to disagree or agree with my selection. So the killer tier list, I believe this is very subjective, and I can tell you a list of killers that I use that I find quite fun. They might not be in the top of the standard list, so to make this list I've had to make it as unbiased as possible and had to come up with a few categories that I believed would help make the complete killer. There was a lot of head scratching at first, but then thought about this logically and thought, right, what things do I need to look out for when I'm using a killer, and picked 3 important factors to consider so I could tier them up. The 3 things are based on the emblem point system from DBD, and these are as follows. Number 1 is malicious. This is the ability to apply pressure on survivors, so you win points by hurting, interrupting and down survivors, and you lose them when they get healed. Number 2 was gatekeeping. This is basically about slowing down gem pressure. You win points every second based on the amount of incomplete generators remaining on the map. Lastly is chaser. You find and start chases. You win a few points each time you find a survivor, and you also win points by winning a chase. Now importantly, the shorter the chase, the higher the points you get. You might be wondering why I didn't include the 4th if I'm using the emblem system, and that's purely because the last one is sacrifice or devout as it's now known. I believe that with devout it's not so much based on the killer, because if you perform the 3 above to the best of the killer's ability, and obviously to your ability as well, then devout will happen regardless of which killer you are. Hope that all makes sense. So let's explain how we assess each killer. So when we look at a killer tier list, I will grade each killer based on the 3 skills above, and let's see what kind of tier list we get. I'm also not thinking about any perks or add-ons at all, but purely on the killer's base ability. So if you're going to be screaming at the screen saying Eerie Head Huntress is the best, then just no, because it doesn't count. So in no particular order, I'm going to discuss each killer. I'm going to give them a score out of 5 for each category, 5 being godlike, 0 being trash. Add them up, then we can have a look at the end at the completed tier list, so don't go anywhere. And the order we rate the killer will be how they are on the menu, so please don't switch off when I start as a trapper. Watch a video till the end and let me know what you think, and of course I'm going to provide timestamps for each killer and they will be placed in the description. Let's start with the face of Dead by Daylight, the trapper. The trapper has some interesting base powers, however this power is flawed by the fact you've got to go searching for your traps and really setting up a network of area. The traps are based on RNG, whilst luck also determines how long the survivors are in a trap for. I can't score them any higher on malicious or gatekeeping, because played properly you won't be pressuring those survivors or gens straight away whilst you are setting up your traps and working out a strategy. I've given them a 2 in chase, a low 2 I would say because of the above reasons about setting up, but moved up from a 1 because if you do carry a trap with you, you do possess the ability to shorten chases, although closing a loop will usually mean that survivor will just depart for another loop. Based on everything I've mentioned above, the trapper comes out with a score of 4, so he gets 1 in malicious, 1 in gatekeeping and 2 in chaser, so his total score is 4, which as you can see on the tier list will place him at the bottom unfortunately, so below average killer. The next killer on the list is the Wraith. Wraith was my first killer main and one that I really enjoyed playing with while I was in yellow ranks. The Wraith's ability to cloak and move quicker gave him a higher score in the gatekeeping category, while also helped improve his malicious and chaser score. Wraith can cloak and get to areas slightly quicker. Don't forget this doesn't include add-ons, so Windstorm is out of thinking here. He does however lose points to the fact that survivors can see you, and also survivors can hear you, giving them a head start on chasers. For this reason the Wraith scores a total of 8 points. He's got 2 in malicious, 3 in gatekeeping and 3 in chasing. The next killer on the list is the Hillbilly. The Hillbilly is going to be up there on the leaderboard, you won't be surprised to hear, and that's because he scores extremely high on all 3 categories that I am assessing him on. Malicious he scores a good 4 because he can interrupt survivors pretty much anywhere on the map, he can apply pressure to them, helping each other and generally scaring them when they are in a game. He lost some points purely because his game can be infected, particularly with indoor maps. Gatekeeping and Chaser, Billy also scored a 4 again because of the fact of the indoor maps. And if I compare him against certain other killers as a base mark, and you will see soon enough who I'm talking about, then you will hopefully understand why he didn't get the top marks. However, Billy can end chases extremely quickly with the added lethality of insta-downs and closing the gaps when survivors are trying to make distance, as well as his ability to basically fly around the map to disturb the gen jockeys amongst you. The score Billy gets is a very good 12, and that will surely see him in the higher categories of the killer tier list. The nurse is next up. Well, you can probably guess that when you search up killer tier lists, and you're going to struggle to find many that don't include the nurse in the top tier. She is difficult to master, and that puts off quite a lot of players, and I have yet to play in red ranks against an average nurse. They are either extremely powerful or just learning their trade, so extremely bad, but that's a sacrifice you have to make to get good with her. Her ability to traverse around the map is second to none. She has the ability to pressure throughout and end chases extremely quick. One of the strongest survivor weapons against killers is normally pallets, walls and loot, and they are deemed useless by the nurse, and for this reason there is no reason I could mark her down in any of the categories. I'm sure you won't be shocked to see that the nurse does receive full marks and will no doubt sit at the god tier section, looking down at all the other mere peasants of killers that were hoping to be as good as her. So her total score was 15, 5 across the board, and that puts Nurse in at the very top. The next killer we're going to look at is the Shape, also known as Michael Myers. Myers is such an iconic character from the horror world, and you just want him to be an amazing killer in the game. If you watch any of my other videos, you'll see plenty of jump scare Myers action and just Myers gameplay in general, so it is with a heavy heart that scoring him from an unbiased point of view was painful, because to be honest, he hasn't got much going for him these days. Malicious and gatekeeping was scored at 1 purely because you start the game at 105% speed, and you have to earn the right to speed up by starting survivors. There's no early game pressure with Myers at all. Chaser, I've scored him a respectable 3 because once you reach the higher tiers with him, the ability to snowball pressure onto the teams is high. With his tier 3 insta-down ability he has to have a little bit of a higher Chaser score than some of the killers, so I've given for 3 for Chaser, but in total he comes out with a score of 5. 1 for Malicious, 1 for gatekeeping, but 3 for Chaser. The Hag is certainly an interesting killer, so her abilities are to place traps and can teleport these traps if they are triggered by a survivor. In regards to her scores, I've had to reduce her Malicious and gatekeeping against a killer like the Nurse because she needs the time to set up. Without add-ons and pair, you could be facing late game sweats as well. For her Chasers, I have given her a 3 however. This was a tough decision because for any Hag mains out there, you see, the key is you can't chase with her base speed. The reliance is on placing traps to close loops, similarly to Trapper, so I gave a respectable score for this. Overall, the Hag isn't going to be at the very top, however with the final scores should see her loitering around the higher end of a tier list. The final score that she got was a 10 with a 3 for Malicious, 4 for gatekeeping because she can use her traps especially towards the end game to close the gaps down, and 3 for Chaser because she has unlimited traps as well, so she can close them loops off, so a very respectable 10 for the Hag. Next killer on the list is the Doctor. Again, he is one of my favourite killers, and again you will find plenty of gameplay videos on him on my channel because he helped climb the ranks on both console and PC. My unbiased opinion is as follows. For Malicious, the Doctor scores a respectable 3. He can pressure the survivors with his base power, allowing you to level up Survivor Madness, slowing the progress of gens and healing. Gatekeeper was also scored at 3 because you can locate the gens that have been worked on and the location of survivors through well-timed static blasts. I have scored the Doctor slightly higher in the Chaser category because he has anti-looting abilities as base. A nicely timed shock will render a window, vault or pallet useless, so he certainly has the ability to end chasers quicker than other killers. For this reason, the Doctor scores again a respectable 10. 3 in Malicious, 3 in gatekeeping, but 4 in chasers. The Huntress is a bit of an enigma, and if you come up against a Huntress main, then you will have some trouble in the game. I believe that based on base power alone, the Huntress isn't going to score as highly as other killers due to her slow speed, so Malicious and gatekeeping will be scored at 2. The reason why they weren't scored lower is that there is no setup time required. You start a trial and off you go hunting straight away. The Huntress has the ability to interrupt from afar with nicely aimed hatchets, but like the Trapper, she is reliant on reload, so this dropped a point in my scoring. Her Chaser score was slightly higher because she does have the ability to end chase quickly, especially with a quick 1-2 of a hatch, then a standard hit. She didn't get any higher scores because she does slow down when aiming, but also in loops there are plenty of opportunities to duck, and the hatchets are dependent on RNG again in regards to objects around. So the Huntress unfortunately doesn't score as highly as you might expect. She does have a total score of 7 with 2 for Malicious, 2 for Gatekeeping and 3 for Chaser. Next up is the Cannibal. Again, like Myers, another horror icon and a great addition to the game. The Cannibal has recently had a rework which improved him massively on how he performs. However, I couldn't score them highly on Malicious and Gatekeeping for the fact that there is no ability to speed up your travels around the map to put the pressure on. The pressure is applied once you're in chase, and Bubba can effectively insta-down you with his chainsaw. I have scored him higher on the chaser category for this reason, because he can end chases extremely quickly, and if there are other survivors around with the new reworked Bubba, he can effectively mow down a couple of you and start applying effective pressure across the board. But he does score a total of 8, 1 for Malicious, 2 for Gatekeeping, and I have given him probably a generous 5 for Chaser because his insta-down, his lethality is good. Next up is Freddy, or the Nightmare as he's known. He is my current main and has helped me in the red rank significantly. Many people are going to tell you he takes no brain to use, and this is of course not true because you need the basic fundamentals for all killers. However, Freddy's powers will certainly help you out in a number of effective ways. Freddy scores highly across the board with 4 in Malicious and Chaser because he has anti-loot powers as base, and also the fact that his power, a teleporter and a generator, is going to help you pile the pressure on all the survivors and make any map, regardless of size, manageable. Freddy scores high but not quite at nurse level, but he's not far off in my opinion. He gets a 4 for Malicious, a 5 for Gatekeeping and a 4 for Chaser, which gives him a total of 13 points and a nice place up that tier ladder. Next character is the Pig, which is another character fresh out of a horror franchise, and another that I did have a lot of success with in the early days of playing DBD. Where would I score the Pig in the categories? So first I would provide with a Malicious score of 2, Gatekeeping of 3 and Chaser of 2. The Pig's main power is the ability to sneak up on survivors, but doing so is going to slow you down. To attack, you're going to need to ambush, which will alert the survivors of what is happening, so pressure is going to be extremely difficult. I've given her a score of 3 for Gatekeeper because she has the reverse bear trap. This is going to allow slow down with the survivors gen repairing, but like a few of the killers, she is heavily reliant on luck and RNG, so factors outside your control. Chaser score is 2, and this is based on the fact that she can have an element of mind games when crouched, but most survivors now, especially those in red ranks, know how to counter this and will do it successfully. Overall, the Pig scores a 7, so sits in the average pile of killers in DBD. The Clown is another killer like Leatherface that has had some rework done. Has this rework moved him up a tier list? Maybe slightly. The Clown scores highly in the Chaser section. He can end loops effectively with his toxin bottles and end chasers quicker. However, ultimately for Malicious and Gatekeeping he is scored lower due to the fact he doesn't have great map pressure. Does have to reload his bottles, so you can find yourself slowed right down whilst you're going through the animation. This is going to give survivors the ability to have an extra few precious seconds to continue on gens while you are trying to pressure a team. So for this reason he gets a 1 for Malicious, a 2 for Gatekeeping, a 5 for Chaser because of his anti-loot abilities, and it gives him a total of 8 points. Next killer is the Spirit. The Spirit is up there with the Nurse in God tiers of killer. I have scored a slightly less in the Chaser in comparison to the Nurse because there are a few counters to the fact you cannot see survivors, you are reliant on the environment and sound. Nevertheless, her Malicious and Gatekeeping are at top marks because she can keep pressure on survivors throughout the game with no knowledge of where she's phasing, where she's going to come out. If she has you injured, then you better heal up quickly or stay out of the way because the noises you make will certainly attract their attention. Spirit is going to be a close second place to the Nurse. When I'm looking at the points overall, she is one of the 2 killers that will be making the God tier of my killer tier list. So her total score is 14, 5 for Malicious, 5 for Gatekeeping, slightly reduced Chaser speed of 4 purely because it relies on the environment, but a total score of 14. Next we're going to move on to the Legion. A Legion is a mixture of characters, so I'm going to try my best not to give them a sex. The Legion scored an average score in the Malicious and Gatekeeping category for a number of reasons. His Feral Frenzy will ensure that survivors are pressured throughout, and a good round of Feral Frenzy will ensure that survivors are busy mending and healing, taking valuable time off for gen repairs. Unfortunately, the Legions do lose some marks in the Chaser sections because they have no anti-loot ability or lethality, so they're still relying on good old standard gameplay to catch survivors whilst in a chase, and Feral Frenzy isn't going to get a survivor down, so there's no lethality, no way of ending that chase quicker. So the Legion scores a total of 8, made up from 3 in Malicious, 3 at Gatekeeping and 2 in Chaser. The Gatekeeping, he can Feral Frenzy around the map, so he can speed up with that. Next up is the Plague. The Plague is such a fun killer to play with and has a lot of snowball pressure that she can bring to a game. She scores a 3 in the Malicious score category because she can put a lot of pressure on for survivors to cleanse and heal once they are broken from a vomit. This pressure relays onto the team and they have to decide if they should be healing their teammates or going on to infected gens, so it does keep the score slightly higher than average in this category. Gatekeeping, unfortunately, she only scores a 2 because she doesn't have great map pressure and travelling around the maps could be hurt, especially if she's on a big map, let's say like Almond. In the Chasing, she has also scored a 2 in that. She can get you into the broken status effect, however, until then there's no lethality there. Her vomit can be countered and she does have a slight slowdown when preparing to throw up on survivors, which can sometimes prolong the loop. I could have scored a higher on the Chaser because she does have the corrupted wells that she can go to, but again, very RNG based and very reliant on survivors keep healing to give you more pools to choose from. So I thought I've been pretty fair with her and gave her a 2 on there, giving her a total of 7 overall. Ghostface is next up, and he's another one of my favourites and a go-to earlier in the days on DBD for me. Ghostface has a lot of interesting abilities such as crouching and stealth, and for this I give him a 3 across the board in all the categories. Why did I give him a 3 across the board? Well, he can certainly keep pressure on survivors with his hit and run style approach, while also having the lethality required to end chases quickly with an insta-down if you were unfortunate enough to be stalked by him. The ability to turn on stealth mode and remove your red stain has to be a bonus for any killer and can make or break you in this game. It can end chases quicker, so there's a lot of mind game opportunities there, even just with little simple things like the crouch. For this reason, I do give Ghostface an above average score, although against a god and excellent killers, he does fall slightly short, but his overall score is 9, with 3 in Malicious, 3 in Gatekeeping and 3 in Chasing. The Stranger Things chapter saw the introduction of the new killer, the Demogorgon, and a lot of excited Stranger Things fans. Now, the Demogorgon scores 2 on Malicious and Chase because he can apply pressure to survivors and does have his Shred that will add more danger to his powers. I do think with his Shred having a visual cue, that can help survivors counter that, and that's why he got a score of 2 in that category. Gatekeeping, he scores above average because he has the ability to traverse around the map using his portals. This would have been a higher score, however the portals can be sealed by survivors and do take time to put down. So he's taken away survivors doing gens by doing that, but once the portals are sealed, you are just a standard killer wandering a location. Of course, like I said, you can put more portals down, but it all takes time and effort, so unlike your nurses, billies and spirits of this world, it's a hindrance that does knock his score down slightly. So Demogorgon comes out with a score of 7, 2 for Malicious, 3 for Gatekeeping and 2 for Chasing. The Oni is one killer that in the right hands can be a lethal character and definitely one of the killers I don't enjoy playing against. He scores highly in Gatekeeping and Chaser because once he receives his powers, the pressure that he can place on survivors can be immense. He has that added lethality, clubbing survivors down with one hit. I have scored him only a 3 for Malicious, and that is because, like a few killers, he does rely on gaining that pressure. Until he starts injuring survivors and these powers are negated, until then, and this stops him from reaching the levels of the Nurse and Spirit. Nonetheless though, his ability to destroy teams once he has gained those blood orbs make him one of the strongest killer in the games, and obviously he has that ability for Gatekeeping and Chaser to end chases quickly, run around the map at top speeds, and that gives him a total score of 11, 3 for Malicious, 4 for Gatekeeping and 4 for Chaser. Next up we have the Deathslinger. Deathslinger is probably one of my least favourite killers to play with and play against. I just struggle with aim range killers, so that's just on me, but I have played against some godlike shooting Deathslingers. I have scored Deathslinger 2 for Malicious and 1 for Gatekeeping. The Deathslinger has a slower base speed, so getting around the map could be very problematic. If you put him on a big map, he's going to have problems. He does have a small terror radius to counter this, but depending on the map, again, does unfortunately knock him slightly down in the scoring. He does, however, score high in the chase section because even though he's slower than most killers, we can't outweigh the fact he has a decent range attack to pull you back in chase if you ever think you are getting away. His range attack isn't quite as effective as other killers like the Huntress, so out of the two of those range killers, the Huntress would slightly get the edge for me, but the Deathslinger does come out with a score of 7, 2 for malicious, 1 for gatekeeping and 4 for chaser. The Executioner is a very interesting killer to rate. On one hand, he is a standard speed, so shouldn't score highly in gatekeeping because he has to walk around the map like a number of other killers. However, things get interesting with his malicious and chaser score. The Executioner can put a lot of pressure on teams through the ability to torment survivors, and this adds another element to his game. He will receive audio and visual cues if you do step on his trails, allowing him to hunt you down more precisely, and chasing can be ended in no time with both a ranged and short attack. He is also a killer that not only ends chases early, but if you are in his tormented state, then he doesn't even have to hook you, which counters a lot of the survivors' second chance perk, as well as being the only killer who has a mini Mori without any add-ons. So taking this into account, Pyramid Head does have to go in at the higher end of the killer list tiers, and he scores a very good score of 11 with 4 in malicious, 3 in gatekeeping and 4 in chaser. On to the new killer to the roster. So the Blight has certainly brought a lot of interest and play to the community, and I've noticed he certainly divided opinions when he was first released. He scores highly on all the categories, and I believe rightly so. Malicious, he scores a respectable 3. Gatekeeping, he scores a high 5 because he can pressure survivors with the ability to fly around the map, bounce into objects very quickly. Once there, he can surprise you with a quick hit or at least get you off a gen and into a chase. In chase, he scored a 4. He was very close to getting a top score of 5. However, again, it's because it's dependent on RNG and map, which is out of your control, and a lot of players struggle to perform loops using his powers. However, getting a hit and catching up to the survivor's short sprint burst is not a problem for this killer, and for this reason he's definitely in the higher ends of the killer tier list. So the Blight scores a very respectable and very good score of 12 with 3 in malicious, 5 in gatekeeping and 4 in chaser. So let's take a look at the final list and see what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Don't forget guys, this killer list, I've tried to apply a bit of logic and unbiased thoughts to it. If you do main any of the low tier killers, then don't come at me. You know, ultimately I've played all these killers, and like anything, if someone has put a lot of hours into them, then they have utilised their strengths and weaknesses perfectly. So I'm not saying you will not come up against a Great Myers or a fantastic Trapper or Hag main. Otdava and Space Coconut would probably annihilate most teams with the Trapper and Hag respectively, so it's just opinions, but it's nice to hear your thoughts below in the comments, or join my Discord and we can discuss it further. The links are in the description. Hope you enjoyed the video guys, and don't forget, if you did, then please feel free to give it a like, comment below and press that subscribe and notification bell to be alerted when I next release a video. Thanks guys.